You really are a bad wife.
You'll always be a dullard.
My husband and sister-in-law abused me saying so.
Get out of my house, you trashy wife who doesn't even do the housework.
My mother-in-law said that and even threw salt at me. It made housecoat covered with it and salty.
She said, "Here you go. Here's the divorce paper."
My mother-in-law and sister-in-law had written the witness statements as if it had been prepared in advance. I took it, filled in my name, and packed up my belongings. I was very grateful to you for your help. Or rather, I took care of you, is correct. My name is Nozomi, a 30-year-old office worker. I have been married to my husband Masato for 2 years. We met at a matchmaking party and he was a company employee working for a medium-sized company at the time. And he was the one who approached me there. He was very kind and took the lead gentlemanly, and I became more and more attracted to him. Then we started dating and our relationship progressed smoothly and we got married. Even though we were married, we both worked. We shared the household chores and lived happily in a well-balanced way. And even now, 2 years after our marriage, that has not changed. But then my husband suddenly quit his job. Why did you suddenly quit?
Because I realized that being a company man wasn't for me.
That's why?
You're not on my side, are you?
No, it's not that. I just wanted you to tell me if you were having a bad day.
I'm sorry, but I wanted to quit right now.
My husband said this while scratching his head. I was surprised, but I did not know that my husband hated his current job that much. It will be okay with that because I was making a little money, but if possible, he should look for another job as soon as possible. But then, 2 weeks later, my husband made a surprising statement.
He said, "I'm going to open a tapioca shop.
What? Are you serious?
It's cheaper, and I can get by with a smaller tenant."
No. Have you ever worked for a restaurant before?
No, I haven't.
Then you can't do it.
Why? You're just going to assume something before you've even tried it.
I can understand if you want to work for a restaurant first, but I don't want to open a restaurant out of the blue.
No, I'm going to open a restaurant. I don't like the idea of working for someone else.
My husband then proceeded to open the restaurant on his own, without listening to my opinion. I told him that I would not help him at all and that he should do it by himself, but he decided on the design and concept of the shop by himself and prepared for the opening of it. As I watched the store gradually take shape, I decided to give it a look for the time being, thinking that if he was doing so well. And so my husband did indeed open his own tapioca shop. This store had a nice atmosphere and the location was not bad. I thought that this could really thrive. However, the reality was not so sweet. No wonder, the tapioca boom had already passed. The only people who come to buy tapioca are the core people who like it, regardless of what's trendy or not. Moreover, my husband, who is not used to working for a restaurant, is very slow at making drinks. So by the time the drinks reach the customers, the ice has melted and the drinks have become diluted. So, the restaurant has no repeat customers, no buzz, and no sales at all. Well, it seems that people in the restaurant industry say to be prepared for zero profit for the first year or two. So maybe it was inevitable, but even so, it was obvious that the shop would go out of business if things continued as they were. So I suggested to my husband that you should give up early and close the shop. My husband was furious, saying, "I've just started this business, so there's no way I'm going to quit." And he blamed me, saying, "Why are you saying things to discourage my motivation?" He would then go on and on abusing me without changing his opinion. But I could not give in to him. If you don't do something, you'll just end up in the red and have more and more debt. Now you know it's foolhardy to open a restaurant without a plan. I think that's enough for you. If you want to be successful in the restaurant business, why don't you get a little more experience? I tried my best to convince him, but he would not listen to me. I had to do something to bring him back to his senses. But the next day, he made another surprising comment.
Let's go live with your mother.
What? Why would you?
Because if we move in with my parents, the rent will be free. Right, that way, we can make less profit. Besides, Mom's been on her own for years now, since Dad passed away. I'm thinking of moving in with you as a way of showing filial piety.
My husband said this and tried to persuade me, but to tell the truth, I was not very keen on the idea of moving in together. My mother-in-law was very harsh with me. I had visited my in-laws at New Year's and Bon holidays, and she acted as if she didn't like me. Well, I have never been severely mistreated as a wife, but I knew that it would be a lot of trouble if I started living with her. However, my husband showed no sign of relenting. Besides, if my husband really continued to run the shop, our lives would become poorer and poorer. If that is the case, it would be safer to live with my in-laws. When I weighed the advantages and disadvantages, I thought the advantages were still greater, so I agreed to live with her for now. And so life with my mother-in-law began. I was immediately baptized by her baiting.
Nozomi, stop standing around and get on with the cleaning, laundry, and cooking. You're a slow wife. You're the wife of a restaurant owner. You should do better than that.
My mother-in-law's angry voice suddenly echoed through the house. I never thought I would be angry like this from the very first day. My mood was already heavy. My husband was completely oblivious to the fact that I, his wife, was in trouble. And there was one more person who annoyed me in my life at my pal's house. It was my sister-in-law. I found out after I moved into my pal's house that my sister-in-law had divorced and moved back to her pal's house with her child. Therefore, the person who lived with me was not only my mother-in-law, but also my sister-in-law and her child.
She said, Nozomi, why don't you have any ice cream?
Yes, because your child ate 2 of them yesterday.
Huh? That's not what I asked you. I'm asking you to go out and get some when they're running out. You're a really inconsiderate wife.
My sister-in-law also complained to me about this and that, just like my mother-in-law. My husband is the same as ever, ignoring my sister-in-law's accusations without interest. I give my husband a cold stare, thinking that I agreed to live with them because you told me to. But my husband was relaxing on the sofa, fiddling with his phone. Within a few days of moving in together, my frustration was already near its limit, and I found out later that my pal's house has a 35-year mortgage, and they are still making payments on the loan. Yet my mother-in-law did not work and neither did my sister-in-law. They were currently paying from father-in-law's inheritance and pension. If my mother-in-law was living alone, she could manage to pay the loan, but now that my sister-in-law had returned with her child, it became very difficult for her to make the payments. Therefore, my mother-in-law said, "You'd better put some money in the house now that you're going to live with us." I had agreed to move in with my husband because he had said there would be no rent, but this is meaningless. Moreover, my mother-in-law demanded that we put in about $2,500 a month because she wanted us to pay for living expenses as well. In the end, I ended up putting in $2,500 a month from my salary to my pal's house. But there was a reason I was mature enough to make the payment. It was because my husband said, "I have a feeling that sales are about to increase." According to my husband, the number of customers was increasing. I thought that once his shop got on track, we would be able to make a stable living, so I decided to hang on until then, and for the next 3 months or so, I did my best to endure. However, during that time, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law continued to bully me. I was about to reach my limit, so I decided to sneak out and visit my husband's shop and announced. But to my surprise, there were no customers there. I watched his shop from a distance for a while, but there was no sign of any customers at all. I wondered if my husband was lying. At the same time, I succeeded in developing a new business partner. From then on, I was put in charge of a joint project with that company. When in charge, you really have a lot of work to do. Therefore, overtime work was the norm, and there were times when I had to go to the office early. This left little time for housework. If possible, I would like my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, who were full-time housewives, to do the housework, but they stubbornly refused to do it. Housework is the wife's job, isn't it? With that being said, both of them threw all the housework to me. So when I couldn't do the housework for a while because of work, the laundry piled up, the room was covered with dust, and this situation became really tough. Moreover, I had to prepare dinner, and on days when I had to work late, they ordered expensive food such as high-end sushi for everyone but me to enjoy. And even though I was not able to do housework because of my work, my in-laws all blamed me. Recently, not only my mother-in-law and sister-in-law, but also my husband blamed me.
You're a really bad wife.
You'll always be a dullard, won't you?
My husband and sister-in-law were always cursing me.
Get out of here, you trashy wife who doesn't even do the housework.
My mother-in-law said that and even threw salt at me. It made house go covered with it and salty. It's too much. I have worked very hard at housework in my own way and contributed in many other ways, such as putting in money for living expenses. And yet I am treated like this.
You're just a smart guy who depends on Masato's earnings to feed you and you.
What?
Yes, that's right. What are you really doing? Skipping housework when you're only earning an allowance. You're not working overtime and having an affair, are you?
What?
What? You're having an affair while I'm working hard to run the shop. I'm going to receive alimony.
The family-in-law proceeded to assume that I was having an affair. Then, my mother-in-law took out some paper from a drawer and handed it to me.
Here you go. Here's the divorce paper.
The husband's section was already filled out, as if he had prepared it in advance. In the witness column, he had written his mother and sister. I was at my limit. Why must I, the one who works the hardest, be pushed around so much? I'm going to get the hell out of this house. I picked up the divorce paper, filled in my name, and packed up my belongings. As I headed for the door with my luggage, the in-laws grinned at me.
We can feel relieved. We've got rid of the plague.
You're gonna have to live alone.
It's the worst. I felt a little bitter at myself for having worked so hard for these people. I didn't want to leave without being told what to do. I spit to my in-laws. Well, thank you very much for taking care of me. Or rather, I took care of you. I know you guys are the ones who will be in trouble without me, but I wish you the best of luck. When I said this, my in-laws opened their eyes and made some noises, but I ignored them and left my in-laws' house. After that, I immediately filed for divorce, rented an apartment for a single person, and began to live a comfortable life. Why didn't I do this earlier? I should have left that house right away. I regretted my slow decision, but I lived a peaceful and tranquil life from then on. Incidentally, for some reason, my mother-in-law called me like a demon after I left home. I didn't know why, whether she still didn't want to abuse me, or whether she had found out the truth about her son's earnings, but I decided not to answer the calls from her, thinking that it would surely only cause trouble if I continued to deal with her. So I went on with my days, and a year passed in the blink of an eye. Then I received a call from an unknown number. At first, I thought it would be better not to answer it, but then I thought it might be a client or business-related call, so I hurried to answer. Then, To my surprise, it was my ex-mother-in-law's voice coming through the phone.
Oh, Nozomi, you finally answered the phone. You blocked my old number.
Of course I would have done that after getting so many demon calls. What do you want? I was too tired to deal with every single one of them. So I decided to let her get to the point.
I'll get straight to the point, without any unnecessary talk. I want you to come back to us.
What? What are you talking about?
Please. We're in real trouble. Masato told me later that the tapioca shop was barely making a profit after a year, and that he had to pay the rent out of his share of the heritage. That's when I first learned that you had been putting money into the house.
I'm glad you finally realized.
I wish you had told me from the beginning.
Huh? Are you sure? You're acting like that. I'm the only one you can count on now, aren't you?
I'm sorry. I take that back. This is the way it is. Please. I won't snore at you anymore. Please come back to us.
Even over the phone, I could tell that my ex-mother-in-law was serious about her request. It would be impossible to raise 2 large children while paying a 35-year mortgage. That's for sure. But then again, she had gone too far in the past. I'm sorry, but I will never forgive you all. There's no way we're getting back together. If you can't pay the mortgage, why don't you just sell the house? Well, Masato's been making a loss for a long time, so he's probably in a lot of debt. If you add up those debts, it wouldn't be enough to just sell the house.
That's why I'm asking you. His tapioca shop went under 3 months ago.
I knew it, but it's none of my business. I'm divorced, and to you, I'm trash.
Oh, that was just an emotional thing.
I don't care anymore. Anyway, I'm a stranger to you now. You're on your own now. With that, I hung up the phone. After that, a mutual friend of mine and my ex-husband told me about his ex-family. They couldn't pay the mortgage on the house, so they ended up selling it for a surprisingly low price, and they had to take on a lot of debt. They also had to add to their debts by the continuous loss of the ex-husband's shop. And now all the in-laws are working part-time jobs in more than 2 places just to pay off their debts. Meanwhile, I got a promotion at work and a higher salary. Now I spend my money only for myself and live a peaceful and happy life.